I'd like to thank you for attending Purpose Venture Capital, our Leaders of Purpose discussion series that we start today. We will be inviting investors, entrepreneurs, thought leaders to address the global challenges that we face. And we hope as part of the startup ecosystem, this discussion series will help us to play a small part in developing important dialogue and solutions to some of the world's biggest challenges. Okay. My name is Von Leong. I'm a co-founder and general partner of Purpose Venture Capital. So good evening and welcome again. And now, without further ado, let me just go into the webinar improper. As this is part of the International Women's Day celebration in March, we decided to choose to challenge. We at Purpose Venture Capital are calling out gender bias in inequality, and we'd like to celebrate women's achievements and working with our investors, entrepreneurs, and partners to help to create an inclusive world. So today, in the next 50 minutes, we will have 3 women leaders of purpose sharing their insights and perspectives on leadership, pushing boundaries, and how they challenge and address gender prejudices and biases. I'd like now to introduce our moderator, Sataj. Sataj is in fact our co-founder and general partner at Purpose Venture Capital. And he will be leading the discussion series with the women of purpose. So may I invite moderator Sataj, please.
Well, thank you, everyone, those of us attending and those of you who are listening. Well, Zoom has been part of our lives for the last year, and we're a bit maybe fatigued by Zoom. So this time round, even if that's the only means of communication, we thought it would be much better to actually reach out to everyone through the webinar but make it as interesting as possible, as fast as possible, so that we can actually listen to our 3 leading panelists talking about their experience so far and how they've actually broke the glass ceiling in many cases. I'm very pleased to be part of this team. My partners, Vaughn and Sharon, actually Sharon is a panelist here, and Vaughn has graciously organized the webinar series, and we've invited 2 leading women, Karen Tok and Li Chu, to be with us in this first webinar series. So, I am usually surrounded by women. I have 2 daughters, a wife, a sister, 2 nieces, 2 partners here in Singapore, 1 other female partner in another territory. So it's also a pleasure to actually let you lead the way. Okay, and I am. Let me start out with 1 question. I think we're going to take turns, and we'll answer the questions in order. Let me start with Karen. Karen, thanks for coming. Just a very sharp couple of sentences about yourself. How do you describe yourself? When people ask you, Karen, who are you and what do you do? What's your answer?
Thank you, Sataj. Thank you for having me here. I fully exited my business 4 years ago. So currently I'm a startup mentor, a speaker, and I volunteer at a few non-profit organizations. I'm passionate about empowering business owners, students, and individuals to turn adversity into power. I am also working on a teachable framework called A New Way to Win, a process of thinking to help others overcome setbacks and limiting beliefs. That's me. A mother of 8-year-old.
Wonderful. And you said that you exited your business, and what business was that?
So I started a biotech recruitment business 20 years ago now. I ran it for 16 years, so did exit, and then I left the business 4 years ago.
Wow, that's a great achievement. Well, how about Li Chu? Can you also give us a glimpse of what you do, what you stand for, what are you
Right.
interested in right now?
So my day job is so I'm managing a life insurance company. I'm managing director of AXA Life Singapore, and I've always spent my career in insurance because I find it to be a very noble thing to do. And because I was trained as an actuary, I naturally got into the industry. And I've had a great career, managing and trying different roles in the insurance industry. That's my day job. What I love doing on my own is I'm a mother of two, and I'm passionate about the environment and climate change. So I'm trying to implique myself in this area as much as possible.
Excellent. Thank you very much. And Sharon.
Hi, I'm
you.
Sharon. Hi, everyone. I'm actually Sharon Sim. I'm the co-founder and also the general partner of Purpose Venture Capital. That's one hat that I wear. The other hat is running a family office. So my background is largely in banking. I spent 20 years at various investment banks. And I've actually done various roles as well at Goldman, at JP Morgan, at UBS. My passion is really looking for new opportunities. I think really working with a team like Sataj and Vaughn, especially in the impact space. I think that's something I want to focus on for, I would say, the next second half of my career. I think we all have different stages in our lives, and I think there's one part of my life where I really want to find the purpose in terms of how do we create a different world. And given my background in finance, it's always around how do we use capital, or how do we allocate capital to a bigger purpose. So that's in a nutshell who I am, what I do. And my passion is really, in food F&B. I think those who know me would know that I've actually dabbled in F&B over the years. It's still a big part of what I do. I love to cook for my family. I have 2 kids at home, and including a fur kid, my dog, Odin. So I think, I juggle many balls as a lot of us here do. So yeah, that's me.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So we do have a really 3 very powerful and interesting backgrounds here. And currently from the insurance to financial sector, from recruitment agency that was built and then sold off by Karen. I think we have a wealth of experience around this table. So Karen, coming back to you, just looking back over the last 20 years, in your career, in your personal journey, what is the greatest achievement that you're really proud of? Is something on a personal or a professional level, something that makes you really happy to talk about and to reiterate?
Okay, something that I'm very proud of, I would say, really is becoming a mother while trying to scale up my business. So it was one of the toughest time when we were trying to scale up from a very small size to size of 10 to 40 headcount. So that was a challenging time, and I always felt torn apart between my 2 babies that I created. And thank goodness my husband was very supportive. He was working from home, but he was willing to change a nappy, attend to crying babies while I kind of focus at work. Work is quite long hours and demanding. So I think that for me, it's a big achievement. Yeah, having a baby and scaling a business.
And I guess it's a big dilemma that a lot of women face. I mean, and when I attend meetings and when men are present, they never talk about their families usually, and they never talk about these passages. So it's actually starting with the new generation, but it's taking a really long time for the men to accept the fact that that's also part of their greatest achievement, raising children and raising family. So thank you for that. And Lichu, how about yourself? When you look back over the last 20 years, you've had a fantastic career. You have raised a family. How do you see, looking back, your biggest achievements, things that you're proud of?
I think I'm not very different from Karen, like all moms would say, right? I think I didn't realize that growing up, when I was working out a career, that after I had a family, I had to juggle being a good daughter, a good wife, a good mom, and a good colleague, right? So there are 4 roles that you juggle all the time. And it became very apparent to me in the 10 years I lived in Europe, because in Europe, one thing about being a working mom is that you don't really get domestic help. You don't have a helper at home. So you literally have to juggle big meetings where you go to, and then you have to think about, oh, it's 5 o'clock, I need to go and fetch my kid from the crash. So the juggling is real, especially when you don't have a support system. So I think at that phase of my life, when my kids were growing up, I suppose I managed it quite well. So this is when you realize that, hey, you can do it. You can juggle a few things at the same time. It takes a lot out of you, and that's a period where you have to make choices. You have to say, do you dedicate most of your time to other people and less to yourself? And I mean, I suppose I'm proud that I made the right choices at the right time of my career. And now where I am now, my kids are a little bit grown up, and I can dedicate a little bit more time to myself and my work. And that's where I see over the years, my experience have managed to put me in a position of responsibility, which I quite like the challenge. So yeah, I'm proud of myself in different ways, but mainly the ability to manage and make the right choices at the right phase of my life.
Great, thank you. And you said it's quite interesting, your comment about Europe. I spent most of my adult life in Europe.
Yeah.
And the fact that it's tougher for a woman to juggle all those responsibilities because there's much less help.
Yes.
Maybe it might depend on the type of social structure that there is, or the companies that are less supportive, more supportive. This might make a big difference, probably.
Yeah, it does. Like when I'm Singaporean, when I'm back home in Singapore, you can always, I have a helper at home, and at times you can always leave your kids with your parents. So the support structure is always available. But when you're living in Europe and you're all on your own, and even if your parents-in-law are, 8 hours drive away, you just have to juggle everything at the same time. And I remember there are many times where male colleagues would say, let's have a meeting at 5:30, and for them it's pretty normal because they've got their wives waiting at home, and I'm the only lady who has to think about, okay, do I tell them that I actually have to go and fetch my kid from the crash? So these are things that I suppose you struggle with, and being a lady, and an Asian lady in a European environment, you often ask yourself, do I share that concern or do I not, right? So it's things that you learned along the way.
Excellent, thank you. Sharon, how about yourself now? Looking back, what are things that you're particularly proud of?
Yeah, I think what Li Chu and Karen said definitely resonated with me in terms of being a working mom, juggling, work, colleagues, family life. It's always a struggle, right? Every day is a struggle. But I think being in banking, maybe just reflecting on my journey there, I think, it's particularly challenging for female, especially in the investment banking environment. So I really appreciate the fact that, timing is actually a very important thing, right? Because as Li Chu alluded to,
we do calls late into the night, and oftentimes the men will find that no issue at all, right? They can easily do evening calls. They can be on call on the weekends. But I think for working moms, it's always a struggle because we do have priorities at home. So I think the greatest achievement for me is actually navigating through that 20 over years in investment banking, through different market cycles as well. So different episodes, different crises that happens along the way. But also I think, really holding clearly what's important, meaning like how do you balance your family, your career, your friends, and the rest of it. So it's a juggling act. And I think every one of us should be very proud of, how we got here, right? Over the years of being in corporate, starting a business. And I think for me is finding the extra energy or time to do things that I enjoy over the last 20 over years. I think, F&B being one, starting a business with my sister and one of our closest friend is definitely the highlight of, some of the highlight of my career so far. I mean, not everything is great. I mean, we had to close certain restaurants. It was a tough year. COVID was hit us really badly. But I think it's the experience of taking on the challenge, right? Putting yourself out there. And also, I think just, believing that, we can handle everything. Maybe not all at the same time, but I think we do manage to balance most things. So I think I'm pretty happy about the journey so far.
Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for all the nice anecdotes and also the frankness with which you framed, the last 20 years of challenges and achievements. Coming back to our, more professional settings, you worked, you've led companies, you worked in corporations, you worked within the sort of the belly of the beast, in a sense, and this is where we spend most of our times at work. And especially when work was physical, we had to spend also physically in another location a lot of time. And when I look back and I see, for example, looking at the patterns, you see a lot of women in many women in middle management positions than men, but once you go up the ladder towards senior positions, the number of women decreases dramatically. And breaking the glass ceiling is usually a big concern, big issue. Karen, is there a moment where you felt that you broke the glass ceiling, that you felt that, that as a woman, it's you found the fulfillment at work and the type of merit that you deserved? Is there a moment that you felt
that I broke the glass ceiling?
Yes.
Yeah. So I would say, although the obvious one would be that I founded a successful business and exceeded, but deep down, the glass ceiling I was trapped under the most while growing up was really this no education, no future. So I broke that glass ceiling when I achieved my 6 O-levels at age 20, because I proved to the system that they had wrongly disqualified me from sitting for PSLE and denied my opportunity for secondary education just because I failed my primary 3 and primary 4 exams. So through my struggle, I discovered the joy of learning, which led me to breaking all glass ceilings and the ceiling for gender, race, language. Knowing that through learning, I can break any ceiling, glass, wood, or bamboos, is the key to my successes from the various sales career to building a solid multi-million dollars biotech recruitment business with no degree, no industry knowledge, no product knowledge, and no financial backing. So I think that's one ceiling I felt that I broke, and I'm really happy about it.
There's maybe our viewers may not know, but there's a wonderful article in Business Times, an interview with you where you tell your own story about how you actually you know, in a very difficult education system where people are weeded out at earlier stages and forced into, you know, what they're not, because some of us are late bloomers. We don't have to, you know, fall back on our own journeys because the education system is rigid. And then you talk about all of this. So I would really, I was really impressed reading that story, how things have changed in a sense, that the education system, yes, it may still be rigid, but there's quite a lot of leeway right now for people with different aptitudes to actually, you know, excel. Do you feel that that's the case right now?
Yes, but you know, we come from we're Singaporeans, so we have the scarcity mentality, and we're quite competitive. And yes, we don't really have any kind of very comfortable support, you know, at old age or when you are jobless, or I mean, I'm seeing more now, which is good news. So as a result, and we don't have a countryside to retire to, you know, because it's a city. You go to north, it's 1,200 per square foot right now. So everything is expensive. So in this kind of environment, I can understand why teachers, why parents are all stressed out in, you know, wanting to get a degree. But the thing is, when I discover education for living and not education for making a living, that's really where I had a big paradigm shift, because I realized that it is through learning, right, that I could achieve anything, and learning is for life, is not just to make a living. So it makes learning much more enjoyable. And so if there's no fear of learning, no fear of failing while learning, or fear of exams, then learning becomes very fun. So this curiosity is really critical. So for me, in a way, I'm also glad that through my struggle, I came to this realization that learning is more powerful than education in that sense.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Ichiro, how about yourself? When did you feel that the moment you broke the glass ceiling, if there is such a moment in your life, is there a moment where you felt that, okay, now this is no longer an impediment for me?
I'm not sure I've broken the glass ceiling, but you know, when I was thinking about when Karen was talking, you know, I remember very distinctly the moment where I felt that nothing was impossible was actually, you'll be surprised if I tell this story, when I was 16. So I went to a girls' school, so I've never felt, you know, and then thereafter a mixed school, so I've never felt this gender thing. But when I was 16 in junior college, you know, in the mornings in Singapore, you might not know this, but you know, we all assemble in a big court, and we sing the national anthem in the morning. And in college, there's usually one person at the head of this entire school, and I would say, I don't remember it clearly now, there's probably about 1,000 people every morning. And that person would call the whole school into attention. And I remember when I was 16, somebody asked me, do you want to be the parade commander? And I was thinking to myself, no, that's a job for a guy, right? Because I've always seen male students do it. And that person encouraged me to try it. And I basically went for the interview and the trial, and I got it. So I think I was probably the first ever female parade commander in school. So that was a moment where I remember very distinctly the first time I stood in front of the school and did what I had to do. I had a really good feeling about it because I knew I was the first ever female student to ever do it, and I loved that feeling, right? So I distinctly, this is probably the moment in my life where I felt good about breaking the barriers and being the first, right? So that's it. Professionally, I don't think I've yet broken the glass ceiling, although I'm managing a company which never had a female CEO. But truly believe, and this I'd like to share, that it takes another manager to help you. It's not all by yourself, right? You cannot believe that just because you're capable and you're good, you're going to break that glass ceiling. Somebody needs to be at the other end of the glass ceiling and extending or breaking it slightly for you so that you can really break through. And the fact that I'm in this role clearly was because somebody then, you know, extended a helping hand and say, would you like this job? Right. And I think as a mom, you know, and that person who lends you a helping hand could be a male or female, right? But so for me, the learning here is, for us, if we've been successful, we've got to lend a helping hand to the ladies that come after us. But also as a mom, we need to teach. I've got 2 sons. We need to teach our sons that you know, there's no such thing as a boys club, or you know, or that everyone should be looked at with equality, I suppose. And capability is more important than gender.
Wonderful, wonderful story. Thank you. Sharon, how about yourself? Is there a moment where you felt that glass ceiling, or the bamboo ceiling, or as Karen said, the wood ceiling, is that broken?
I think no, I've not broken any type of ceiling, but I think we are chipping away. I think it's for me, I look at it as a daily, you know, challenge, right? We encounter obstacles all throughout our careers, daily lives. It's not just about the gender bias. It's really maybe sometimes expectation of yourself. So for me, is there's no glass ceiling per se. I think it's where we're just going to be chipping away, taking small wins along our journey here. I think a good example, which I think Li Chu reminded me of, is that, you know, we do need support. We do need a group of people that, you know, help us along the way. I definitely was very fortunate to have a very strong mentor, a female mentor, but she showed me how things can be done, right? How being a female, you can be both assertive and yet coming across as really caring, right? She really took care of the team. She drove the business. And I think we all need certain role models to show us the way, in the sense of how do we crack this ceiling, if there's one. And I think it's, for me, it's still a daily challenge, right, to kind of work through that, because we do face a lot of I don't know about the two of you, Karen and Li Chu, but, you know, because being in finance, we get a lot of interaction. Mainly it's a very male-dominated space as well. So I think it's always, every interaction you have, there's an assumption that, okay, you know, you have to prove yourself a bit more than the next guy, right? So for me, it's always, the ceiling is always moving. It's a moving target, and it's the small wins that really count for me.
What Sharon said is very interesting. May I also add?
Go ahead, please.
For the gender ceiling specifically, I felt that, you know, I learned that a leader needs to be, I mean, we all think that the stereotype is the leader needs to be masculine, tough, and is not allowed to show emotions or weakness. But over the years, I've learned that allowing myself to be vulnerable, to be authentic, and embrace my femininity can be a very powerful force for leadership. And so I allowed myself to be moved into tears when reading testimony about our service, and even when a valued employee decided to leave, or when stress was overwhelming. And embracing my motherhood was another one. I allowed myself to pump for breast milk during internal meetings. Hey, I had a baby to feed, and I needed to be back to work after second month of my maternity. So I think that I mean, I didn't know that at the beginning. I also think that a leader needs to have all the traits of a masculine, a man, you know, because that has been our role model for, you know, since caveman time. So therefore, but then I realized that if I can't be myself and show my vulnerability, I cannot connect with my staff. I cannot be real with them. And as soon as I show myself to be, if I'm truly weak in certain area, I show that. I feel that I get 10 times more support back. And also being weak allowed them to have the chance to contribute to me, right? So that's a very interesting discovery for me as well.
Well, this is very very true, and you hear the stories of people who have demonstrated a different type of leadership. It sticks with people around them also. So looking at it from the purely collaborators, co-workers, employees, people that you interact with on a daily basis, what they look up to a person who has a style of leadership that is different, but at the same time potent. It's something that makes them extremely proud of being part of an institution and proud of being part of a team. And then that sort of ties in with our other question, which is usually something that I tend to ask myself, and I'm sure that all of you ask yourselves. If you look back and you say, well, what would I advise to my younger self when I was in the first years of my career? What would I tell myself if I were, much more aware of what I was doing and my skills and my competencies and all that? What would you advise to your younger self, Li Chu? Is there something that you would say I should have said, I should have known, I should have,
Yes.
I could have been better if I had known this?
Yes. So I think I touched on it a little bit earlier. I think for me, because I have throughout my life always managed to be successful when I put effort. As I was growing up, I became very confident of myself, right? But one thing that I did not realize in the corporate world is capability and confidence is not enough. You need allies, you need friends to be successful. You need your networks. So if I were to look at my younger self and I were to tell myself how I can be successful even faster than I am today, I would say it's very important to build a network. It's very important to build friends at work. And it's very important to be tactful, right? I don't know about Sharon and Karen, but I have a personality that can be very outspoken at times. And because I've worked in Europe and I've seen things, when I was younger and I had a point of view, I was very assertive about it. This might not work well everywhere. And I think now that I'm a little bit more experienced and more mature, I would have said to my younger self during those times where I was very outspoken and there was setbacks, I would have said, you should have kept your mouth shut. Or you could have put across your thoughts in a different way or in a more gentler way. So speak the language that the other person wants to hear, because at the end of the day, you need to have your purpose in mind. And it's not about yourself, it's about achieving that purpose. And if I had to do it in a way so that I can achieve my purpose faster, I would. And I would put aside pride and be more tactful and be more skillful in the way I work with people and communicate with people. So that's what I would tell my younger self.
Great. How about Sharon, yourself? What would you tell yourself?
I would tell my younger self to really take more risk earlier as well. I mean, I think, I don't know about Karen and Li Chu, but for me, I've always been obviously very fortunate, right, to be schooled in Singapore, to join the right banks at the right time. But also, I think the fact of me was, there's a bit of the imposter syndrome going around, right? So I think I've always shy away from taking on responsibilities or opportunities, I would say, because simply I thought I wasn't ready for it, right? there's always this inner voice that tells you that, okay, maybe you need a bit more experience. Okay, this is a role that I would want to do maybe a year later. But as you know, these things don't come about. Again, you know, opportunity may just go away. So I think for me, to my younger self, is to be more confident, right? To really take on things that maybe I'm not prepared for, right? Something is, you get uncomfortable doing certain roles or taking on certain projects. And then I think we all learn on the job rather than trying to prepare yourself, right, to fit into the role. So this is what I've kind of experienced, and I think that helped me back a little bit in terms of my progression. But I think, you know, taking risks is also a bit of an exercise, right? The more risk you take, the more experience you have failing, right? I think that makes you more brave to take on challenges. So I think right now, for me going forward as well, right, just to bring things into the future, I think I really want to be more confident about, you know, who I am, the capabilities I would have. And I think for a lot of females is to actually take that challenge, right? Sometimes we tend to hold ourselves back. Maybe we don't have enough support. We don't think we are good enough. So there are a lot of inner dialogues you have with yourself, right? So I think the point is risk taking is like a muscle. So we have to use it. So I keep reminding myself, if this makes me uncomfortable, just do it. A good example would be taking on today's webinar. Is not something that I would naturally want to do. I'm an introvert, so, you know, public speaking is not my strongest point. But I think we do have to challenge ourselves, right? So I think that's one message I want to bring forward, right, to my future self as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Well, I'll go back to the circle. So Karen, how about yourself? What would you advise yourself?
So I would say to be more ambitious and to be brave. So even though I did start a business without any knowledge and it looked like I just jumped in, but usually in a lot of things I do, I have very calculated risk before I took. So I think if I can be more ambitious and brave, I could exit a bit earlier instead of 16 years, maybe 10 years. And then I would think that I should engage my mentor more frequently at the early stage. So, because during the first 5 years, we only met like once a year to review my financial performance, and then it was thereafter that I see him more frequent. So I thought maybe if I could like tap on expertise much earlier rather than trying to survive on my own, maybe I would have been, you know,
Yeah.
much bigger, yeah, faster.
No, it's interesting because mentorship usually comes up quite often. I mean, I even, and it's not, I think, only in the domain of women, but also for a lot of us, especially my generation, where those who started working in the 1990s or late 1980s, you wouldn't seek a mentor. It wasn't something natural, or as Li Chu said, you would not look for an ally, or you would not care much about building up your network because they were sort of things that belong to other spheres. Or as Sharon said, you know, being uncomfortable and taking risks was not something that we would have done. It took really a long time to learn. And you have to exercise it. And I think younger generations are better at it than us. I see my daughters, I see they look for advice, they look for mentors, they look for alliances. They're collaborative, they're not competitive. You know, it's a different set. So this is something that I felt that is also very important in you know, making sure that people have access and to be successful, to have access to all sorts of support. And support is alliances and mentors and many other things, and the inner strength.
Yeah, not just mentors, but many mentors sometimes. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. But just coming back to the sort of, I will invite the viewers, those of you listening to us, to actually putting questions in the chat so that we can actually address them to our panelists in the meantime. But before we wait for the questions, if any, and let me ask you another question. And this is more like projecting yourself in an imaginary world where you're leading a global agency, international agency that invests in empowering women. Let's imagine that it's one of the United Nations or one of the major agencies in the world with a big budget and big power to make things happen and change things. What would be the first thing you would do if you were at the helm of this organization? Okay, so Sharon, maybe I'll start with you this time.
Yeah, I think that's a great question, because I kind of feel that a lot of the programs that we see are very, okay, for instance, mentorship, right? I mean, obviously the banks have been promoting that for the longest of time. And it's always sort of biased in the sense that you expect a senior male to be mentoring someone who is junior, and usually it's a female, right? So I'm just thinking out loud over the years, is that also a little bit sexist and biased, right? So I think it's almost thinking about creating a program where we have senior females mentoring the younger male colleagues, let's put it this way. And therefore, the skill sets are different, right? I think as a female leader, a senior person, we get to lead with different style, as you said, more open, maybe more empathetic, a little bit more collaborative in many ways. So I think if an organization that I lead can impart that kind of philosophy at the earlier stage, whereby you have a very strong program with female mentors and younger male colleagues, I think that could potentially change the way the organization would be, right, going forward.
So you would put your money into bringing mentorship, but mentorship of women who have had the experience and the younger colleagues who are getting into the workforce and would like to actually get a glimpse of what can be done differently and better. So this is what you would do. How about you yourself, Li Chu? What would you do?
I don't know. I think education is very important. So I will probably put money in curriculum in schools, because I think impressions are formed early, right? Our ideas of whether the dad should be going out to work and the mom, sorry, I'm quite old, so I have this impression of my dad going to work and my mom staying at home. And the stereotypes of what a boy should play and what a little girl should play. I think all of these impressions are formed early. So I would invest in education. And I would also put programs, I suppose, sponsor or fund programs in place where we show the unexpected, right? People who you unexpected, most unexpected to do a job or to do something, and share it and make sure that people see that the world is not necessarily what we were taught to think. So that's probably where I would spend my money. Now, in the corporate space, for the longest time, like Sharon said, in the bank, is the same with all big corporates. They try to put a quota, right? And if need be, growing up as a Singaporean, frankly, I've never really understood this need for a woman quota, because I suppose Singapore is very much a meritocracy. I mean, we operate mainly based on merit, but I can see in other parts of the world it may be necessary. So if there's a need to fund, certain proportions of whether it's males or females in certain roles, so that the corporate team tests it out and see that the results could be very positive, I would probably fund those experiments so that, it's not just say, but people really see the benefits come true.
Excellent. So education is and especially starting from a very early age, making sure that people have the awareness is what you would put effort and resources into.
Yes.
Karen, how about yourself?
Okay, so for gender equality, I guess we should cover men, women, and any other sexual orientation. So I think, you know, in terms of gender differences, it has been ingrained into us for like hundreds and thousands of years, from caveman times, right? The hunters and gatherers, and passed down generation through culture and even behavioral epigenetics. So I think a true change is not easy. So gender equality will come only through a cultural change, resulting from shifting every individual's belief system. So if I have a big budget, you did say big budget, right?
Yes, a
So
very big budget.
very big budget. So very similar to Li Chu, I think I will curate a few key impactful and personal transformation workshop that truly bring about a higher level of self-awareness, connectedness, and personal power. I believe that every individual has the infinite potential to be great, to be extraordinary, and to be truly happy and kind. And an inspired employee who is connected and embracing his or her own strengths and weaknesses will be less likely to create politics and put others down, others who are not unlike themselves down. So, and then I will have available the best life coaches, leadership coaches, psychotherapists, and mentors to help employees overcome their challenges, better manage stress at work and home to achieve their goals, and to be the person they wish to be. And I will hire the illusionist Darren Brown to create an environment and culture that will bring about the best in people. I'm not sure if you've seen this show in Netflix. It's called The Sacrifice.
Yes.
Yeah, it's an illusionist reality show where he created a psychological experiment in which he manipulates an ordinary person into taking a bullet for a stranger whom he was racist against, right? And then I like this quote. Let me tell you this quote I love. From Darren Brown. He said, "Being open-minded, it doesn't mean just believing in everything because you like it to be true. Being truly open-minded is about to be prepared to change your beliefs based on the evidence or the lack of evidence." So, so I think it is really not easy, and I think we need to really have this paradigm shift. And I think to make the shift is really going very deep down. So if we have this consciousness, then all these governance policies for gender equality, it's really just as a guideline. We don't really need it because we see all of us being equal, right? So I think if we can make that change internally, so then the whole culture and whole environment will change. And I believe it can be created.
Wow, excellent. I think soon enough you're going to get a phone call from one of those biggest agencies to lead them to do this. Now, this is very articulate. Thank you.
I've seen it done in a lot of workshops I went to. So I'm such a believer that you can really shift paradigms.
Excellent. Thank you. And this actually ties in really well with a few questions that our audience has posed. Let me actually launch the first question from it's Noah says, well, in your experiences, what's a key quality that one should possess in order to be an effective ally? Okay, so being an ally, I think this is in reaction also to what Li Chu has said. Alliances are important, especially in the corporate world. And would you like to answer this question, Li Chu?
Yeah, I think we have to, as we approach this topic of gender equality, I think we have to be very aware that everyone is different, right? It's not about male, female, it's about the individual. So I would say if I had to choose one quality, it would be listening skills, right? You really have to try to understand what that person wants to do with her, if you're at work, with your colleague, what she wants to do with her career, and what she really wants to do with the next step, right? And you cannot assume. So you need to be very open-minded. You have to discuss with him, and you try within the best of your ability to help that person. So I would say, simply put, that's basically it. And I can give an example. At work, I recently had a session at work about diversity and inclusion, and we had a topic where we discuss, when a lady comes back from maternity, how should we approach it? And some people had said, oh, we should give her more time because she has a baby at home. And some said, oh, we never really know what to do when a person comes back from maternity. And at the end, the conclusion was we should just ask the lady, because, different mothers have different preferences. There are mothers who cannot wait to get back at work because, they have been at home with the baby for a long time, and actually they don't really want to talk about the baby. And there are the rest who are what we expected responses, which is, oh, I would like more time. I probably cannot take intense work. But you cannot assume. You need to ask. Yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for this answer.
Can I also add in on that one?
Yes, please go ahead.
Question.
Yes.
Yeah, I think pushing this agenda about gender, I think it's also women supporting women, right, in the work environment. So I think example of which is like as Li Chu mentioned, I have colleagues who just had a baby, came back to work. So you do understand the challenges that they face, right? Because they are trying to juggle breastfeeding, right? So they're expressing in the nursing room, so they'll be out for a certain amount of time a day. So I think being an ally is also understanding, right, the situation that your colleagues are in. And in this case, it's actually a female colleague who just had a baby, came back to work. So I think I was actually quite impressed that a lot of us on the desk actually stood in for her, meaning like, when she's away, we actually step in to help her with certain of her duties, like meetings or taking some of her calls. So I think it's a bit of that, right? Being an ally is also being sort of perceptive of things around you. So I think standing in to help is definitely one of the key attributes of being an ally. And I think because, we have been through that. I've been through, coming back to work after 2 months of maternity. So I do understand how stressful it can be, right? So I think, so it's of that empathy, bringing that across when you deal with your colleagues. I think that really helps to be a good ally.
Thank you so much. And I think there's a question here that is actually tied to this. This is Michelle, who asks, can you share one example where you have stood up and supported a more junior female colleague and seen some success in the corporate world, where you stepped in as a person who led the way and who mentored her? Is there any anecdote, any experience that you had where you had to just take a call on somebody and say,
I can share something.
Yeah.
So I used to have a colleague who would come to work, a lady, by the way. She dresses very sexily, and she loves her high heels, right? And she would strut, and there was a lot of I suppose chit chat in the pantry about, oh, this lady dresses sluttily, if I may use this word on a panel like this. But I know her, and I know her working capabilities, and she's very, very good at what she does. So I actually, on several occasions, had to defend her. She was not around, but I had to say, look, anyone can dress any way they like. And she doesn't have to be expected to dress down just because we all feel it's not appropriate for work. But she does a really, really good job. And I did that for almost, I would say, half a year. And now she does the same thing. She dresses sexily at work, but she's very well respected and very well accepted. So I would say there's certain stereotypes about how a woman should dress, how a woman should talk, how a woman should behave herself. And I think people like us who can defend or can support these people to be who they are, while at the same time, allow them to or showcase that they are capable despite of the stereotypes. I think that's what we should really do.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing this. And the last question, and I think this ties it, well, what's the role of empathy in leadership? How important empathy is according to you? I don't know if Karen, you would like to take up on this?
Sure. So empathy is very, very critical for leadership, I think. So, let's take firing, for example. I had to learn through the hard way as well. So when you have an employee who are underperforming or not on top of the jobs, and on top of that, maybe have some politics and like all kinds, and you're about to fire this person. So I think that over the years I learned that how to tactfully fire the don't fire the person, but fire the performance, fire how this guy is at work, right? So when I'm able to separate that, I could have more empathy, because he's a great father at home. Maybe, he's a great boyfriend, a great son to a mother. Maybe not ambitious, maybe not on top of the job, but so he doesn't fit this role. So I find that when I'm firing someone, I have to be very specific on where I fire, and at the same time tell him where he's good at and what kind of job. I give him some career counseling, career advice, what job might fit better. If you find that it's too stressful to really push yourself so much, expectation is too high, then this is where you go. And this is why I don't think you fit the job. So it is best, maybe I can, try and find something or whatever. So I think that's one way, empathy. Why that's important? Because, some people might just jump, right? And I have met, as a headhunter, I've met people who sat next to me and say, "You're a headhunter. Oh my God, I hate headhunter." They tell me I'm not suitable for the job, and they don't get back to me, and it's all kinds of stuff. So I know, I'm so aware, and I always tell my staff. So we have this one of the 10 value. One is we say to tell the truth with compassion, and to in every single touch point we have, we make sure we touch, move, and inspire them in our conversation. So even if they're not employable, we don't put them down, right? So I think just be empathetic that everyone's good for something, for sure. So then to encourage employee, and so I think empathy is very important, but it has got nothing to do with being weak and not being able to make unpopular decision. Totally separate, I feel. But we must have it. Yeah.
No, this is a great, I think, touch, and I think a great sentence. You said, "Fire the person, do not fire the person, fire the performance."
Performance. That's a good word. Yes.
And this is wonderful, because this actually, I think, in one sentence summarizes what empathy is. I would like to thank all of you a lot, because I think this was a really inspiring conversation to lead you, Karen and Sharon, all of you really being so frank and so upfront and incredibly insightful. So thank you. And I'd also would like to thank Vaughn, because she's the one who put all of us together in this virtual room. And she's been the one actually who brought myself and Sharon into Purpose Venture Capital, and I think she deserves that round of applause. So thank you very much. Thanks all of you.
Thank you, Sita, Sharon, Karen, and Lee Chu for your time. These are wonderful leaders of purpose. I met them through philanthropy, ESG investments, and actually co-invested in a couple of startups. We are all here aligned to a mission, a common mission, that we want to support innovative entrepreneurs who wants to solve the world's greatest challenge through purpose-aligned capital. So get in touch with us at contact@purposeventurecapital.com if you'd like to learn more. And also block the date, April 22nd, where we'll invite leaders from family offices to join us for a debate and discussion on how to leverage capital from family offices to invest for a greater, better, and more sustainable future. So mark your diary for April the 22nd and follow our page on LinkedIn for Purpose Venture Capital, and we will share more details then. Thank you for your time, and have a good evening. Thank you all. And
Thank you,
we'll chat
everyone.
again. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye.